everybody, it's your boy Luke here for our DFS value plays for this week's RBC Canadian Open. We'll be going over my top 6 plays priced $8,000 and below on Draftkings to help you save some salary and spend up for an extra stud or two in your lineups. This week, the top of the pricing pool is extremely top heavy, particularly when it comes to win equity, and I would say between the top 7 or 8 players on the board, you're looking at least a third of the win equity, just a lot of top end players. Then it drops off like a cliff. So trying to find that value this week, perhaps a little bit more difficult than in weeks past, but I've got you guys covered. We're running the models, and these are going to be my top 6 plays per the numbers. So across the board, some towards the top of the range, and of course, some that are getting down towards the 6K range, which this week is extremely barren. Not that many guys that we can really feel all that comfortable getting to. So excited about this. Is a little bit of a unique slate given the strength towards the top and how weak it is towards the bottom. Let's go ahead and hop right on in. Alrighty, the first value this week is going to be Mark Hubbard at $7,900. And while he's not a flashy pick by any means, he's also a very consistent player. Somebody who, in pretty much all 4 categories, is capable of gaining to the field. And while he doesn't usually gain across all 4 categories, it's nice to know that he's at least capable of doing so. So if we take a look at his recent form over the last 24 measured rounds, up here at $7,900, you'll see he's gaining pretty much in every category except for off the tee. The putter is just a slight marginal loss, and off the tee, he's only losing 11/100ths of a stroke per round. He's somebody who certainly gets it done with his accuracy over his power. Not one of the longer players on the PGA Tour. In fact, if you look at his putter, it looks like it's made for a junior level player. His regular clubs also a little bit short, so with that, obviously giving up a little bit of distance, but also making up for it with his accuracy. So somebody who's going to hit plenty of fairways, and around St. George's, that's what we're looking for. We've got 3.5 Kentucky bluegrass rough that is only going to get longer throughout the week, and also only 4,000 square foot greens. Very small targets, and if you're in that rough, it's going to be nearly impossible to hold these surfaces. So for guys like Mark Hubbard that are accurate, have been gaining of late in every category we're looking for, and on bent grass, tend to do their best work, are exactly what I'm looking for. You can see on the bent grass surface, gains about a third of a stroke more per round than his baseline. So even though he has been just a slight loser of late, we could or should expect that to rebound, right? If he goes from just a marginal loser to gaining about a quarter of a stroke per round, hit some fairways, so rather than losing slightly off the tee, is able to go out there and perhaps gain half a stroke, even just a stroke to the field, you're looking at a top 25 finish for Mark Hubbard, let alone we consider the field strength here, where that top 25 at a regular tour event is more equitable to maybe something like a top 10 or top 15 at this type of field. So at his price tag, I think he has the type of upside we're looking for. And while he's not going to go out and win this golf tournament, I can almost assure you of that. He certainly does have that top 10, top 15 upside that at $7,900 would be more than enough for us. So I like him in large field GPPs. He's got the solid course fit. The recent form has been consistent. It hasn't been all that flashy though. Made cut at the Charles Schwab, we like to see that. Made cut at the Byron Nelson, in fact, a 32nd place finish. Did miss the cut at the Wells Fargo, which is unfortunate because it's a relatively similar track, but made cuts at the rest of the tracks on here, Mexico Open, Zurich Classic, more than make up for it. He's a cheap play. He's a consistent player here on tour, loves bent grass, and I'm going to have him in probably 15, maybe even 20% of my lineups here for this coming week. Next up, we have Spaun at $7,700, and it feels like since his win at the Valero Texas Open, he's gone completely forgotten about, right? You can see that the whole way back here 10 starts ago, but since then, made the cut at the Masters, in fact, played pretty well there. The one missed cut, or say 2 missed cuts, were at the RBC Heritage and PGA Championship, which isn't ideal, particularly because both of those tracks are comp courses here, but in terms of skill set, he's still putting up respectable shots gained metrics. So this obviously does not include the win at this point. That's 10 starts ago. That's included in his last 50 measured rounds, but over his last 24, which have obviously not been as sharp, he's still gaining significantly off the tee, still gaining close to 2/3 of a stroke per round on approach, and the putter has just held him back. He was stone hot I should say stone cold over his last 24 measured rounds. But obviously when he had that win, all of those top 5, top 25 finishes is when his putter was scorching hot, right? He could not have been a different player than what we've seen of late. So if we take a look at those last 50 measured rounds, just to give you an idea with a JJ Spaun, you'll see that he's just a marginal loser in that category. And with JJ Spaun is close to a neutral in that category, I mean, he's posting top 25s. The tee to green play is there, right? He's solid in all 3 of those categories. And on bent grass, he makes a habit of having those spike performances. So even though it hasn't looked all that good of late, the recent form hasn't been there, he's still striking the ball, just the putter has to come around. And bent grass, for whatever reason, tends to be that thing that makes that come around. So hopefully we can be early on a JJ Spaun at $7,700 because the recent form hasn't been all that sharp of late. I do think that he'll be middling owned. I don't think he's going to be super chalk on this slate, but given his upside, given the fact that he's so good on bent grass, I think maybe he is deserving of being chalk, something closer to 15 or 18% owned. So we'll have to see on Wednesday what his ownership ends up coming in at, but in either direction, going to be somebody that I'm getting leverage on. Next up, we have Pat Perez at $7,600, and he's somebody who's quietly been making some cuts. And while he's had a few missed cuts mixed in there as well, right? Hasn't been all made cuts. He did have the missed cut at the Valero Texas Open. Ever since then, 51st, 66th, 38th, 12th, pretty solid at the Charles Schwab. That's another comp course, and almost a top 25 last week at the Memorial. So he's been extremely consistent, and outside of what he did at the Charles Schwab, nothing real flashy. But what I really like about Pat Perez is he's another player that loves bent grass. He gets on these greens, for whatever reason, tends to make a few more putts than usual. And of late, that's really been the one thing kind of holding him back, right? If you take a look at the shots gained, losing off the tee, we'll talk about that, but gaining on approach, gaining significantly around the green, and just a slight loser with the putter. If he's gaining closer to a quarter of a stroke per round, and off the tee, we'll get to that here in a second, he'll be gaining this week. I absolutely love him, and the reason why he'll be gaining this week is Pat Perez is a relatively accurate driver. He just cannot hit it very far. He's been quoted as saying that at long golf courses, he absolutely stands no chance, but at a golf course that's just over 7,000 yards this week, it's the exact type of track that he's licking his chops at, because outside of that driving distance, I don't want to say he's elite in any one category, but he's certainly above tour average in every category. So I like the vibes for him on bent grass. I like the fact that it's a relatively short golf course. That certainly plays into his skill set. And based on the recent form, the fact that it hasn't been all that flashy, I don't think he's going to be super chalky, right? I mean, this is a really weak field. He is only $7,600. So I do think he'll get some attention because he's made, 5 straight cuts, 5 of his last 6 cuts with that missed cut there at the Valero Texas Open. But in either circumstance, I think it's worth being chalk, even if he gets to like 15% owned this week, just because of the course fit and his putting splits on this surface. Next up, we're going to talk about Ryan Armour at $7,300. And Ryan Armour has not been all that sharp of late, but you can see he models as a top 30 play. And a lot of that is due to the ball striking stats. So if we take a look at his recent form down here, he's at $7,300. He's gaining off the tee, which he's not a very long player. So that shows you just how accurate he's been of late. A marginal loser on approach, which is actually pretty good for Ryan Armour. From time to time, he can leak strokes in that category. But for him, the fact that he's gaining to the field in shots gained total, he's gaining a third of a stroke per round tee to green, that's pretty solid for Ryan Armour. But the reason why he shines in the modeling is if we take a look at the last 50 measured rounds, it's very consistent. He's even better on approach, closer to a neutral, gaining closer to a half a stroke per round on approach. And sure, the putter isn't all that great in general, but you have to remember he's a bent grass specialist, right? So a little bit of a pattern emerging here with the plays. He gains close to 0.34 strokes more per round on bent grass than any other surface. So even though the putting hasn't been there over the last 50 measured rounds, we can expect him to have some positive regression this week in that category. And if he continues to just be right around a half a stroke gained per round with the tee to green play, you're talking about a top 25 finish, especially in this type of field where shots gained are going to go along a lot more way. So I like him there at that price tag. I think that he's going to keep himself in play like we need him to. And if you're playing in cash or in a single entry or a 2 to 3 max, smaller field type of GBP, I think he's an even better play because he might not have winning upside, might not finish in the top 5 at this event, but certainly has more than enough ability to finish in the top 25. Next up, we're going to go to Brandt Snedeker at $7,100, and of late has not been playing his brand of golf. So if we take a look at the shots gained metrics, they're not going to be ideal for Snedeker. In fact, losing a bunch off the tee, but gaining on approach, that's great to see. And with the putter, a loser, which that should be the most surprising maybe stat on the entire board, because Snedeker, known as one of the best putters of all time. So if we take a look at the splits on bent grass, you can see he's over, or say right around, a stroke better per round on bent grass than any other surface. If he can continue to hit the irons like he has, which even for the last 50 measured rounds, I believe he's a gainer. He's just a slight loser in that category over his last 50 measured rounds, which has been one of the worst stretches of golf for him in his career, right? He's not playing really good golf right now. At the same time, you can see he's made a few cuts. Obviously had that 3 missed cut streak, made the cut to Valero Texas Open. He's had it some weeks, and some weeks he's completely fallen apart. So it looks like he's starting to put it together. The one key factor here is the bent grass splits, right? When he tends to find his game, it's on courses with bent grass because, like I said, one of the best putters of all time, when he has that working, it's usually on these surfaces. And if he goes out there this week and gains 7 strokes to the field with the putter, it doesn't matter what he does tee to green, right? He could gain like a stroke on approach, which is kind of what he's on par for with his recent stats. If he's around neutral off the tee, he's a relatively accurate driver. Right, and at this golf course is just 7,000 yards. I think that plays directly into his game, kind of like it would for a Pat Perez. I really like his chances this week. It's all down to the putter. And if you're going to put him in a weak field, put him on these fast bent grass greens that have a ton of undulation, he has a much, much higher chance of finding that pop putter than anyone else in the field, than anyone in the world. I mean, you could put everyone in the world in this field, and he would have the best chance, maybe outside of a Denny McCarthy, of finding that pop putter. I mean, that's how good he is on this surface. So I really like his just upside here on this slate. He's an extremely volatile play, so kind of on the opposite spectrum to somebody like a Ryan Armour. Where Ryan Armour, a very safe play. I see him making the cut here more often than not. Brandt Snedeker could certainly miss the cut this week, but definitely, if he makes the cut, he has his best stuff from tee to green. Is somebody that could perhaps win this golf tournament. I mean, I'm not even kidding when I say that. This guy used to win golf tournaments from all the time. He's won at the Farmers Insurance Open, a golf course which for 3 of the 4 rounds is closer to 7,800 yards, let alone a golf course that's just 7,000 yards, right? That plays directly into his skill set. So I know it's obviously past his prime at this point, but I like his upside at this field. And our last pick is going to be Ghim at $7,000. And Ghim, not a flashy pick. In fact, we took him a few weeks ago at another bent grass track as a little bit of a flyer pick, and it didn't pan out. He, in fact, played some pretty sorry golf, to say the least. So if we take a look at the recent form, you'll see what I'm talking about. He made the cut last week at Memorial, which for him is a pretty solid performance. Missed a cut to Charles Schwab. He played him there. He missed a cut to Wells Fargo. He played him there too. A few made cuts before that. Obviously, that was kind of the reason we played him. He had shown some momentum, but of late hasn't really done much. But despite not having any solid performances, I mean, his best performance was what? Was it a 18th place at the team event or something like that? Yeah, 18th at the team event, which doesn't even count for his shots gained metrics. He's doing pretty darn good with his shots gained here. You can see he's gaining significantly off the tee approach. He's gaining close to a quarter of a stroke per round. The one issue is the putter, right? Losing 2/3 of a stroke per round, which for Ghim is always going to be the issue. He's not one of the better putters that we find, but for whatever reason, that guy loves bent grass. In fact, gains over 1/3 of a stroke more per round on bent grass than any other surface. So much like a lot of the other picks we've talked about, this should be a theme that you've noticed throughout the video. When he tends to find his best game is on these greens, and with this field strength, that's enough to make him a play for me. I mean, the ball striking's there, the putter should be a little bit better than most, and if he even just loses a stroke to the field this week with the putter, given how good the ball striking and tee to green play can be, that's enough to perhaps finish in the top 25. And kind of like a Luke List, if he's just a neutral putter this week, could maybe go out there and actually win this. Well, I shouldn't say win. He's not going to win this event. Top 5 or top 10 at this event, right? We'll get to that ceiling type of performance. So I like him there at $7,000. It's obviously going to be a little bit of a scratchy pick, as all of them are going to be in this golf tournament. It's just a byproduct of the strength of field. It's obviously strong up top, but outside of that, some of the names down low are a struggle to click on. That's all I've got for the value picks, guys. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead and let me know what your favorite value on the board is down in the comments. It could be $8,000 and below. Go ahead and give me a reason why as well. But as always, I appreciate the support here. You guys enjoying the content, stopping by, taking the time out of your day to hear me rant about DFS. If you guys haven't already liked the video, make sure you go ahead and do that. And also make sure you are subscribed to the channel here if you haven't already done that. I know a lot of you have already done that or already subscribed to the channel, which I thank you for doing that. But if you haven't, you want to do so you don't miss any of my content in the future. I'm coming out with fantasy videos pretty much every day, getting ready for every golf tournament on the schedule. I also do prize picks videos, showdown live streams for every round on tour. So if you're looking for a one-stop source for all of your fantasy golf data, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Again, I appreciate all the support, guys. Make sure you comment your favorite value down below, like I said. Best of luck with all of your DFS lineups for this week, and let's get this cash.